It's winter, and you can now get almost anything you need for the coldest months of the year delivered with Uber Eats. What do we mean by almost? Well, you can't get a ski slope delivered, but you can get dish soap delivered. Sunshine, that's a no. But a bottle of wine, that's a yes. A snow angel, sorry, no. But angel hair pasta, Uber Eats can definitely get you that. Get almost anything delivered with Uber Eats. Order now. Alcohol and select markets. Product availability may vary by region. See app for details.
If you're a facilities manager at a university, you know students rely on the cafeteria for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and the occasional late-night snack. So when a dishwasher breaks down and dirty plates pile up, the mess hall can turn messy in the blink of an eye. Enter Grainger. With over 1 million industrial-grade products and fast delivery, the product you need now is never far away. So you can turn that dishwasher back into a lean, clean washing machine. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
If Chelsea were behaving like that, the media would paint it and say, well, they're just being street smart, they're just being savvy. When Forest try those tactics, you know, we're football terrorists.
This is 1865, the Nottingham Forest podcast, and it's the FA Cup weekend, which, due to a scheduling quirk, means that Forest aren't playing on Saturday or Sunday. In today's podcast, we're going to have the Wheel of Misfortune, Tricky Trevor's Tree of Trivia, Cooper's Courage, and Tricky Tree Tracks of My Tears. All of that really easy to say. We'll also hear the opinions of you, the fans. We'll have Jeremy Davies joining us for his regular sketch, and we will think back 30 years to the last time that Forest had a number 10 from Stafford and were challenging for Europe. Welcome to Football Terrorists.
Football Terrorists.
I am your host, Rich Ferraro, and I'm joined by this guy, the Maradona Of The Midlands. Say hello.
Hello.
Would you believe that this is the 68th podcast this season, as you can tell by that unbounded enthusiasm from my co-host? We've brought you match reports on both the men's and women's teams, and also our weekly Friday 5 news roundups and match previews. And we're really grateful to have your company. So let's welcome our guests for this podcast. What's your name and what's been your highlight in the last month or so?
So I'm George, and I think it's got to be the Liverpool game, the atmosphere that happened when Chris Wood scored after 8 minutes, and then the disbelief, I think, that Forest had the lead, and the fact that we've made it challenging against such an elite team. We more than held our own and deserved the points at the end. So Liverpool at home for me.
Hello, I'm Tom. My highlight of the last month has to be the 7-0 demolition of Brighton. It's hard to win football matches at any level, especially in the Premier League, and put 7 past a Brighton side who's been near enough in the top 10 for the last few seasons in the Premier League. I think it was an unbelievable game, and case of we being ruthless for once.
I'm Baz, also Brighton, but my favourite bit was chanting "We want 7" and then having to change it 30 seconds later to "We want 8."
Last but not least, Maradona.
Well, I think it's got to be the 5-0 defeat. No, I'm joking. It was when Chris Wood scored, and for that hour or so, when we could just believe that we were gonna beat Liverpool, we were gonna reel them in, and the title charge was 100% on. For that hour of belief was a brilliant feeling.
Yeah, well, I mean, quite a lot of different thoughts there. I have to say, in my mind, every time I think about 7-0, I keep thinking to Blackburn rather than Brighton, because we lost 7-0 to them 29 years ago. And as we discussed about that was at the end of a long unbeaten run as well, wasn't it? So Forest like getting battered when they're finishing things off. But then the following week, then they played Lyon and had one of their most famous victories in modern times. Okay, so it's time for our first feature, and it's over to my good friend and colleague, the Maradona of the Midlands.
Rich, thank you. This is the Maradona of the Midlands, and this is the Wheel of Misfortune. I am going to spin the wheel. Many say the most important invention in human history. and it will bring up a topic. We will then give our panelists 30 seconds to share their views, and points will be awarded for the best responses. At the end of today's show, the panelist with the most points will get to choose a song of their choice as our closing music. So, first of all, shall we go to Baz? And Rich, would you like to tell him, well, would you like to spin the wheel and tell Baz the topic, please?
Shh, you'll give away our secrets. Okay, so spinning the wheel right now, and your topic is Anthony Elanga. You've got 30 seconds. Go.
Many years ago, I had Sweden's finest car, which was a Saab 93 HOT, which stood for High Output Turbo. What that meant was you'd hit the accelerator, it wouldn't really go, and then suddenly it would be off like a rocket. And that's kind of not only how Anthony Elanga plays, but it's also how his season's gone so far. He started slowly, but now he's off like a rocket, and it's absolute joy to watch.
Fabulous. Thank you very much, Baz. And
you're muted.
I'm going to be awarding points as we speak. So let's spin the wheel for the next round, and it's George's turn. And spin the wheel now, and your topic is Jota Silva. You've got 30 seconds. Go.
Well, as the song goes, when you score, you make the Forest sing. Jota on the wing. He certainly does make the Forest sing when he scores. Think back to that 7th goal against Brighton. It was certainly the biggest cheer of the day. He's got a finish on him, but it carries on and says every time he's on the ball, we know there's going to be a goal. We certainly don't. He's very unpredictable on the ball, and I think we showed at Bournemouth that in the absence of Hudson-Odoi, he maybe isn't the answer on the wing, but his impact is best felt off the bench, and he certainly is our superstar, our super sub from Portugal.
Thank you very much, George. I tell you what, everyone's doing very well at sticking to their 30 seconds. This is most unusual and unexpected. So next person is Tom, and the wheel gives us Danilo. So your 30 seconds start now.
Our Brazilian smiling assassin has finally come back to the first team. He was, I thought he was brilliant against Brighton, having come back from a really serious injury. He got the ball rolling with that brilliant pass into Gibbs-White, and we love him. Nuno loves him, and can't wait for the rest of the season with him in our midfield.
Oh, you've still got 10 seconds to go if you want it.
Danilo!
And that's the time up now. Yeah, it's a good filling there, Maradona. Thank you very much. Okay, so again, awarding points as we go. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do that. And Tom, you get a bonus point for being very, very concise in a way that, frankly, is unusual for you. But we're going to move on to our final topic, and all three of our contestants, and Maradona, if he fancies it, will get a go at 30 seconds talking about the big guy himself, Evangelos Marinakis. Now, we're going to go in reverse order for this. So, Tom, I'm going to come to you, and your 30 seconds on the big guy start now.
I think we've got to be thankful for what he's done and what he's brought to Nottingham and to Nottingham Forest. I mean, he does get criticised as a bit of like as Gary Neville called it, a bit of a mafia-type boss, but he's got us into the Premier League, and he keeps putting the money where his mouth is. And I think we should be more appreciative of his what he's done for us rather than being vilified as some kind of villain.
And once again, you are well ahead of time there, Tom. So I'm just going to neatly and seamlessly fill just for a few more seconds. And there we go. Right. Okay. So next up on Evangelos Marinakis, it is our very own George Edwards. Your 30 seconds start now.
I think he's got to be the most loved and appreciated owner in the Premier League, really. He has a connection with the club, with the fan base and with the city that you rarely see in modern football. So I think we've got to thank him for staying in the Premier League, for the signings, the investment that he's given, and for the love that he's shown of this city. He represents Nottingham very well. And for the first time at the minute, we really have some stability under him in terms of managers, transfers and players. So yeah, what a guy. Thank you, Evangelos, and we'll love you forever.
Okay, so the big guy clearly knows where George lives. Okay, And then, and then last but not least, now Baz has just passed me a post-it note saying that this has apparently been checked by a solicitor. So in which case, your 30 seconds on Evangelos Marinakis start now.
Evangelos Marinakis has prepared the following statement. These allegations have nothing to do with me and have no effect on me whatsoever. There is not one shred of evidence against me.
Well, okay, so that was Baz reading out a prepared statement from the solicitors of our owner. And Maradona, I don't know what you thought about those responses there. Have you got any thoughts about Mr. Marinakis yourself?
I've also prepared a statement.
Oh.
Evangelos Marinakis, the man, the enigma, titan of industry, shipping magnate, politician, philanthropist, easy for me to take, father, son, husband, and proud beard wearer. Most importantly for us, a ruthlessly ambitious sportsman. Many laughed at him when he said he would restore Forest to their former glories, including me. But as he now leads us to an unstoppable trajectory to the peak of European, nay, world football, I feel I must apologise to him for not believing in him. Kyrios Marinakis, I apologise. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maradona. And you actually are the winner of that round in an unexpected development with Baz in second place. And also we have George and Tom bringing up the rear. But there's still all to play for as we move on to our next feature.
1865.
Terrorists.
So this is called Tricky Trevor's Tree of Trivia. And this is around celebrating the life and career of the first £1 million footballer, Trevor Francis. Now, we all know that the triangular-haired frontman joined Forest from Birmingham City, and it was £1 million. Brian Clough claimed it was £999,999. He probably added in the 99 pence as well because he wanted to take the pressure off the striker. It turned out that it's actually once you pay a certain level of tax to whichever authority it was something like 1.015 million. But nonetheless, record-breaking figures. We also know that he scored that goal to crown the Reds as champions of Europe. But can our panelists answer the following questions? So we're going to give you a couple of questions each. We're going to go round robin and we're going to award points on the basis of the accuracy of your answers. So question one, and I'm going to start with George. So Trevor Francis made 70 appearances in the red shirt, but how many goals did he score for Forest?
24.
Oh, the answer is, does anyone else know?
From
bonus point?
30, 28, 30, 29, something around there.
Tom gets a bonus point because the answer was 28. And George, I'm going to give you half a point because you weren't even a figment of your parents' imagination in 1979. So I'm going to give you half a point.
A sympathy half, thank you. Much appreciated.
A sympathy half, the kind of thing that your dad buys you in the pub when you're 16. So half a point for getting within the right ballpark. So I'm going to go to Baz next. And your question, which stadium hosted the European Cup final in which Trevor wrote his name into history?
Is it the Olympic Stadium in Munich?
It certainly is. Congratulations to you, Baz. You get the point. And then we come to Tom. So, after scoring the winning goal in the European Cup final, Trevor went on loan to the MLS. Which team did he play for? It's a tough one, this.
I've read his book. I'm trying to...
I was going to say, you either know it or you don't, so that should hopefully give you a bit of a clue.
I can't... Is it Detroit?
Oh, very good.
Yes, that is a win. It is Detroit Express. So well done to you there, Tom.
put your hand up for that.
Yeah.
The only thing I actually, when I'm reading, it's only football books, I seem to like remember. Anything else, like exam books, forget it.
Well, you know what? Your brains are in your boots. Okay. I say that's perhaps a bit unfair because you are the font of all football knowledge in Team 1865. So
no, I wish I was when with my GCSE. I might have been on like 100 grand a year or something.
if they'd had a GCSE on Forest from yesteryear.
Yeah.
So okay, let's go back to George. So we'll go to question 4. So Trevor missed the European Cup final in 1980 with an injury. Which part of his body was crocked?
Ankle.
I'm going to give you that.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you that.
Yeah, Achilles.
It was indeed his
Come on.
Achilles. So you get the point. Okay. And a bonus half point there for Tom for knowing the answer. So Tom's racking up the bonus points here. Okay. So then we go back to Baz. Trevor was sold to Manchester City in 1981. What was the transfer fee?
I have no idea. 750.
You're incorrect. Anyone for the bonus point?
I think we would have made a profit on
Yeah.
it.
1.2.
Yeah.
Oh, George gets the
1.2,
bonus
1.3,
point. Yeah, George gets the bonus point. 1.2 million.
Come on.
So
I thought I'd get in there before Tom spoke, you see.
Yeah, very, very.
Have you read his
good.
book?
Interesting because he
not
had a
bad an answer,
reputation for just being cropped. So
Something just came to me. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, so it turns out that apparently, I think John Bond was the manager at Man City, and he threatened to resign if City didn't sign him. But then the Man City chairman got really, really annoyed because he was paying somebody who never actually was able to play because of this Achilles problem. Okay, and then what I think is probably a fairly easy one, if you've read the book, Tom. Which was the club where Trevor launched his managerial career?
Sheffield Wednesday, was it? Or was it?
It's incorrect.
It's QPR, isn't it?
I know my QPR.
Yeah, no, well, Baz shouts it out, but we couldn't hear it underneath the hubbub. So Baz gets the bonus point there. And you know what? That means that... Oh, well, you know what? I'm gonna have another question here for a bonus point as well, just to see if anyone wants to get a bonus point, because the scores are pretty tight. I think everyone is on... So current scores are Maradona's on 6 points after his first round intervention. We've got Baz on 7 points in the lead. We've got George on 6.5 and Tom also on 6.5. So let's see if we can have a clear leader here. So just put your hand up, no shouting out. If you know the answer to this, how many England caps did Trevor Francis win? Tom?
In the book, 52.
It is indeed 52. So there we go. So a bonus point for you. Okay, well, you know what? Well done to all of our panelists. And as we just heard, Tom has streaked into the lead by all of half a point. So still to come, we're going to hear from you in our monthly polls. We're going to play a game of Cooper's Courage, and our winning contestant gets to play Tricky Tree, Tracks of My Tears. But first, it's time for this.
The 1865 Sketch by Jeremy Davies. There are few groups of football fans more derided than those who leave a game in the 85th minute because they want to beat the traffic. Even the Prawn Sandwich Brigade at Old Trafford are probably held in less contempt by the majority of match-going fans and Roy Keane than those that get up with about 82.5 minutes played, usually just as the ball goes out for a corner, and shuffle past everyone else because these people are always seated at the far end of the row before creeping up the steps to the exit, hoping no one will notice them, turning back to look if they hear a sudden roar from the crowd. And of course, if a goal is scored, they always go completely nuts, overcompensating just to show that they are as committed as anyone else. Fans that leave early with their team 4-0 down with 10 men are excused to an extent. They are making a legitimate point to their team that the result and performance is not acceptable. The modern-day equivalent of the thumbs-down gesture in a gladiatorial arena in ancient Rome, albeit with less terminal consequences for the vanquished. It's those supporters that leave with the game on a knife edge that are held in most contempt because they are perceived to be letting the side down. The level of scorn really gets ratcheted up a notch if the team then scores or there is a late twist of some other kind. Any fans who left Nottingham Forest matches early during January would be particularly deserving of this level of contempt because stoppage time, once a brief window of chaos during which teams panicked, the ball got pumped into the mixer a lot, and the commentators seemed to pay closer attention to the referee than the game. The referee has had a look at his watch, was the most exciting thing that could happen, has become effectively, to borrow a phrase from late Forest legend Trevor Francis, albeit one coined when he was Sheffield Wednesday manager, on the occasion of the original Fergie time game, the second leg. Anything less than 8 minutes is a rarity these days, and as we all know, it only takes a second to score a goal. Stoppage time was introduced to the game in 1891, a year additionally significant in the history of football for the founding of the Wrigley Company, whose products would sustain many a manager's fingernails during stoppage time by providing something else to chew on. These days, you'd understand if managers had a specific tactical plan for stoppage time, because just as life begins at 50 these days rather than 40, at least this particular 40-something is hoping so the 90th minute for a match is the new 80th minute. Let's just look at the goals that have been scored in stoppage time in Forest matches during 2025. Jota Silva's magnificent 7th at home to Brighton, Antoine Semenyo running salt in the wounds inflicted by Bournemouth in the 92nd minute. Paul Anachu giving us the jitters at home to Southampton by getting their second goal on 91 minutes, before that miraculous Honor Ada clearance from the goal line on 95. The Liverpool match might not have featured a late goal, but only thanks to Matt Sells making a flurry of late saves. And then, of course, there was that joyous moment at the 95th minute at Wolves, when Taiwo finally got on the score sheet. It's a far cry from Forest's previous stint in the top flight back in the 90s, when stoppage time basically consisted of 2 minutes of the crowd frantically whistling whilst the commentators wondered loudly where the referee has got all this stoppage time. It did add a bit of extra chaos and uncertainty to the spectacle, which has become almost too precise and tightly controlled. See also VAR. Notwithstanding the warm feeling engendered by Taiwo's big moment, my personal favourite bit of stoppage time drama in recent weeks has to be in the dying embers of the win against Spurs, when former Forest hero Jed Spence was shown the red card. Not because it's always nice when a former player suffers a misfortune on his return to the club. Surely no one at Forest could bear any of the heroes of that unforgettable promotion campaign any ill will. It was an evening liable to trigger nostalgia amongst fans of a certain age. Boxing Day football, players big-gloved in temperatures so cold you could see their breath, which might once have called for the famous orange ball. Clearly such nostalgia was catching, because Conor McNamara, on commentating duties for Amazon Prime, reached for the warm and cosy cliché, "He's been sent for an early bath." There were 90 minutes and 40 seconds on the clock, leaving Spence barely with enough time to run the bath, let alone enjoy a long hot soak before his teammates arrived to join him. These days, of course, it would more likely be a short, sharp plunge in an ice bath than a lengthy soak in a hot one, possibly physiologically healthier, but again, less chance of seeing orange balls. Not the way Jed would have dreamed of his return to the club ending, but perhaps some consolation in that he could get away in time to beat the traffic.
At Sierra, discover great deals on top brand workout gear, like high-quality bikes, which might lead to another discovery. Getting back on the saddle isn't always comfortable. Good news is Sierra has massage guns. And chafe wipes, too. Discover top brands at unexpectedly low prices. Sierra, let's get moving.
1865.
Terrorists.
Hello and welcome to 1865, the Nottingham Forest podcast. I'm Stephen Topless. Don't forget to listen to our 1994-95 season review when we look back on that brilliant season for Frank Clark's Forest side. Part 1 is out now and it's in your podcast feed, so do have a listen back to that one. Joining us for this part of our 94-95 season review is former Plymouth, Man City, Coventry, Norwich and, most importantly, Forest midfielder and Welsh international David Phillips. Welcome to the 1865 podcast. Great to have you with us.
Oh, you're very welcome. You have some players who are like enigmas. And there were times where, Stan crossed the line, but it's having to deal with him. And when you had a manager like Frank Clark dealt with him really appropriately well. I still remember going up to training because I was living in Leamington Spa and then travelling up. It was only an hour. And I remember going past Leicester Forest Services and Stan's car was actually going the opposite way. And I'm thinking, well, hold on a second, where's he going? So I get to the training ground. They say, oh, no, he's gone back to Cannock for whatever reason. I said, well, Cannock's not that way. Cannock's over that way,
Quickly in was Cooper and well in as well. Collymore, nicely done. Collymore's going alone again. Oh, he's got it this time! Stan Collymore!
1-1 it finished and Forest had shown that they were well and truly back in the top flight. Joining us on this review of the 1994-95 season is Forest fan and season ticket holder. He was a season ticket holder back then as well, Martin Bostock.
We went down and then immediately came back up, and I think there was a kind of arrogance maybe, but we just expected to be in the top league. I mean, we've got quite a good core squad. And then Brian Roy was signed, and we didn't really know him that well, although I knew he'd done really well in America in the summer. But I can't remember any big expectations that year, but we certainly did very well.
The majority of players from the latter years of Brian Clough's time were in that squad, minus Nigel Clough and Roy Keane and a few others. Frank Clark had also brought a few new faces in. We've mentioned already Stan Collymore and then people like Alf-Inge Haaland, Lars Bohinen. Were there any fears about the quality of the squad coming back up into the Premier League, or were you fairly confident that Forest could hold their own back in the top flight?
Any side with Collymore in is going to do all right.
Joining us for this part of the 1994-95 season review is the man who was Forest's undisputed number one for over 10 years, Mark Crossley. Welcome to the 1865 podcast.
Pleasure to be on.
So let's go back to the summer of 1993. So Brian Clough has stepped down as manager after Forest's relegation from the Premier League. He's replaced by Frank Clark. What was he like to work for, and how different was Frank to Brian in terms of pre-season preparation and getting the team ready?
Frank was really placid. He was a quiet man. No shouting and bawling. It was all tactical and tactical on the training ground. Whereas with Brian Clough, it was more about man management style. And Frank introduced more coaching into the preparation, and it just made unbelievable signings as well. The signings that are made were just. I don't recall too many bad ones.
Forest recorded some outstanding wins in the early unbeaten run. A 2-1 win away at Everton was followed up by a 4-1 thumping of Sheffield Wednesday at home, and most notably, there's a brilliant goal in that, isn't there, Stephen, by Lars Bohinen. It's a brilliant volley at the Bridgeford end. And I think Lars Bohinen was just blossoming into a really nice, cultured footballer at that point for Forest.
Yeah, and I love Barry Davies' commentary on that as well. You hear it at the top of the show. It's so good and perfect for that goal. Forest then dish out another 4-1 hammering a week later, this time at White Hart Lane against Tottenham Hotspur. Steve Stone, Brian Roy with a brace, and a special from Lars Bohinen earned Forest the win.
Watch out. That's a good little ball inside. Great chance here for Forest, and they have taken the lead. Steve Stone opens the scoring as Nottingham Forest take the lead, and it's been coming. This is Stone. Now Hazard. Great ball. And Bohinen. It's a lovely chip.
We played Tottenham away, and that's when you really thought they were going to do quite well that season, because I think Tottenham were doing fairly well as well, and they just signed Klinsmann. So to go to Tottenham and win 4-1 was just absolutely fantastic.
Then came a trip to Old Trafford for the return game against Manchester United. Alex Ferguson's side hadn't conceded at home in the league for 8 months until Forest turned up.
Collymore. He's done it! Stan Collymore! And Nottingham Forest must feel as though they've broken into the Bank of England. Collymore has stolen a goal from the vaults of the Old Trafford defences. It had to be him. It's a full-blooded match, but it's a wonderful tactical contest too. Chettle flicked on. It's come as far as Pearce. It's gone in with a deflection, and Nottingham Forest lead by 2-0.
As we go into 1995, the Reds are 5th in the table. Stan Collymore and Brian Roy are forging a brilliant partnership up front. You've got Steve Stone, Lars Bohinen, Ian Wone behind them, providing ammunition. David Phillips is the holding midfielder and playing a really important part in that team. And then you've got Mark Crossley, Des Little, Colin Cooper, Steve Chettle and Stuart Pearce making up a strong defence. All the ingredients were there, and this was a really good Forest team that was breaking records and earning plaudits along the way. That's Nottingham Forest 1994-95, 30 years on, a special podcast by 1865. Available now at 1865.football or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is 1865. Take it to our podcast partner, sports social network and fan hub. You stand up to protect your team on match days. You can gain rewards such as food, booze, and the merch. You can stay in touch with fellow Reds fans. Use golden ticket code at Exeter, and you can skip the waiting list. Find the link at 1865 football, and that's where you can follow us on Threads, Insta, TikTok, Twitter, and more.
Welcome back to 1865, the Nottingham Forest podcast with Rich Ferraro and me, the Maradona of the Midlands. Thanks to Jeremy for his sketch, and do remember that you can download the Fan Hub app from our website, 1865.football, and use the code 186-ERG to skip the waiting list and get rewards. Now it's time for a new game. It's 3 years since Championship Nottingham Forest beat Premier League Leicester City and cup holders at the time of the FA Cup as well, if I remember correctly. This game celebrates this achievement. Let's play Cooper's Courage.
Ooh. So with this game, Maradona's going to lead on this, but what we're going to ask you to do is Maradona's going to go to you each in turn and ask you to name 3 players from the Matchday Forest squad that beat Leicester 4-1 in the FA Cup 3 years ago. So you get a point for the players who are in the team, and you get 2 points if you can name a player who started on the bench. So I shall pass back to you, Maradona, to lead the way with this game.
So let's start with, let's go in alphabetical order this time. Let's go Baz. Can you name me
3 players from that squad? Well, one of the advantages of that season was Steve Cooper basically played the same 11 every single game. So I could go with the back 3, which was Joe Worrell, Scott McKenna, and Steve Cook.
Well done.
3 points, yeah.
Next, it is by alphabetical order, George.
Right, so you get 2 points for the bench ones, is that right?
That's right.
Right, I'm going to try and get them then. Colback, Horvath, and Joe Lolly.
6 points to George.
Work. That is strategic thinking at its very best. Hey?
Hey.
This
Boy's
is,
a winner.
He's got his head screwed on that.
Well, this is in my era now, so I've got a chance.
This is your era, yes. Okay. And finally, for the first round, it's over to Tom.
I'm going to go Max Lowe, Jed Spence, and Keenan Davis.
Very good. 3 out of 3 again?
We threw, 3 out of 3. So, time for the next round.
Circle all the way back to Baz. Baz, go for it. Come on, this is
right. We're getting on to now. So it'll be Yatesy, it'll be Zinkernagel, and Jono.
Correct.
Correct.
Now, over to George. Will he go for the 3-point shot again, or the 6-point shot as it is in this case? From downtown, George Edwards. Go for it.
Right. Zande Silva, Tobias Figueiredo, and Sam Surridge.
Oh, tremendous work.
This boy's on fire.
He's prodigy, isn't he? Gosh. All right.
I've got pen and paper, but yeah.
Yeah, you haven't got Google there, have you?
No, all up here.
Okay. And then back over to Tom.
So I've probably only got about 3 left, haven't I?
There's 20 players on the matchday squad, so you've got 5 more to choose from.
So I'm going to go Brian O'Shea. I think he's signed around then. Richie Larea.
Oh, tremendous work.
And seeing you've just mentioned Down Under, I'm going to go Joe Lolly.
We've had him already.
Cafu then.
Hang on, how many goes are you allowed? Whoa.
Well, it wasn't it. He's already been.
You're not listening, Tom?
Some controversy. I'm going to leave it to Maradona to arbitrate on this one. Do we give Tom 6 points?
I'm going to give Tom 6 points. I think this is a friendly game. We're not in the S-housery world of professional football here.
We're not in Sunday League now.
If you played this on starting 11 on like Quickly Kevin, and you mentioned somebody whoever's doing it will say he's already been said, so you just go for another one. But if I gave you a wrong answer, then obviously I don't get the points.
Well, I'm just going to say is
I'll give you the point, Tom. We're all about having a colleague
friends.
Yeah.
And I will just also mention though that Quickly Kevin is done. 1865 still going. So which is the better podcast? Just ask yourself that.
It's a good point. You can't. That's fact. You can't argue with facts.
Okay, so we've got 2 members of the matchday squad still to name. So we're going to ask you to stick your hands up, and Maradona, I'll ask you to choose someone to get the extra points.
Well, okay, but they're all sticking their hands up. Who do I choose? Favoritism here. I think Baz is behind, so I'll let Baz go first.
For the remaining 2 of the starting 11 would be Brice Samba and Ginny Garner.
That's it. That's correct. Okay, so what happens now?
Well, for that particular round, it means that George won that round through his strategic play. So well done to you, George. I can't work out what that does to the actual scores yet because I need to use my pen and paper. But George won that round. Tom came second, but then Baz's late intervention brings him very, very close up into 3rd place. But it's all very close, and there's lots and lots to play for. And we will award the points in a little while when I've had a chance to work it out. Now, thank you very much, everyone, for playing that game. And it's time to go to the polls.
1865.
Terrorists.
And in our polls today, we asked you a number of questions. I'm going to be very interested to know as well what you all think to our panel. So let me just get the details up. And our first poll question was, player of the season so far, and I gave 4 choices with the option to comment. So I gave the options of Chris Wood, Ola Aina, Morgan Gibbs-White, or Nikola Milenkovic. Let's just go around and find out from our panelists who they think out of those 4, or would they choose someone else? I'm going to start with you, Maradona.
So I wasn't listening. What was the question?
You know how quickly Kevin doesn't exist anymore. You need to buck up your game because otherwise we're going to go that way.
I was mentally switched off. My script had ended there. What was the
Professional broadcaster. Okay,
so things ready to go home.
Okay, right. So, who is the player of the season so far? Would you choose one of Wood, Aina, Gibbs-White, Milenkovic, or someone else?
I think I've got to go for Milenkovic. His inclusion has just been a game changer for the club and elevated us to levels not seen in a long time. So Milenkovic for me.
Okay, Tom, who would you choose?
I'm going to go Chris Wood because of his goals, and he just seems like he hardly. Well, I don't want to tempt fate, but he's keeping himself in decent nick at the moment, and his goals are like all different types of goals. It's not just like tap-ins. They're like the goal against Everton and goals like that. He's just been phenomenal, hasn't he, for us this season? So I'm going to go Chris Wood.
The more I see it, the more that goal against Everton with the head tennis was just poetry in motion. Baz, what do you think?
All 4 of them are great. I think Ola Aina has flown under the radar for how good he's been this season. The way Anthony Elanga's on form is outstanding as well, the way he's just come into form recently. But I'm going to give it to Murillo because I just love the massive grin he has on his face, and he's obviously enjoying himself so much, and I love to see that.
Okay, I'm going to ask you to hold tight because I'll come to you first for the next question. But before we do that, let's ask George.
I'm going to agree with the Maradona. I mean, it's tough because Wood's been probably the best striker along with Isak in the league, and Aina's probably been the best performing fullback. But I think Milenkovic has transformed us more than anybody has. He's brought organisation, leadership, and absolute control to our defence. And I think that's been the biggest difference from last season. So Milenkovic for me. He's made Murillo a far better player as well. So it's Milenkovic for me.
I think it's fair to say that there's a good shout that 3 of our regular back 4 could be the best Premier League defenders in their position with Milenkovic, Murillo, and Aina.
And Sells.
Well, yeah, of course, top of the clean sheet league. So, yeah. So in our polls, actually, it was a tie between Wood and Milenkovic, and they both had 44% of the vote. Gibbs-White got 11% of the vote, and Ola Aina didn't get anything, which is odd because I think he is the best right back in the Premier League by quite some distance. I would say at left back, it's probably Anthony Robinson, but he loses marks for the fact that he spells his name funny.
Not necessarily his fault. It's his parents, I think, are probably to blame more than himself.
Well, I mean, there's more than one person.
The Maradona Of The Midlands. Thanks, Mum. Go.
Yeah, you took the words out of my mouth. Okay, so the next question, and Baz, I'm going to come to you first on this one. So the next question was Murillo, shag, marry, or buy a drink?
Whoa! Shag.
George?
I'll marry him then.
Okay, and Tom?
All 3.
Oh, what a night. Maradona, I know that you're a pious individual. Would you go for any of those?
I'd marry him. I think he'd be useful around the house. You know, he's a big, strong lad. He'd be good with the ladders when it comes to cleaning your gutters and what have you.
I don't know. I think the fact that he's so rectangular means that actually there might be an imbalance on the ladder. There'd be a danger of him falling off.
You have to get some scaffolding in.
I have to say, if you watch his missus's TikToks, he comes across as like the perfect husband.
Wow. So actually, you
watch out then, because there's three or 4 guys right here who have got their eyes on him.
Yeah, she's Mrs. Murillo, who's already married him, has got competition. Okie doke. I don't know where we can go from there. Let's go on to the next poll question. Oh, by the way, it's a poll and I've not read out the results. So, Shag got 44%, Buy a Drink got 38%, and Marry got 19%. So, Maradona, you're in with a chance. Okay. Okay, so the next question was asking, was the Bournemouth match a blip, a warning sign, or just let's move on? Tom, what do you think?
Let's move on. It just everybody had a bad day at the office, and it's like it has. Then the week later against Brighton, we sort out the goal deficit, don't we? And some. So yeah, it's just a bad day at the office. Let's move on. Let's not dwell on it and crack on for the rest of the season.
Baz?
Warning sign, I'd say, just because it came after the Southampton thing where I think we needed a little bit of a kick up the arse.
Okay, and George?
Yeah, I think blip if you take into account second half against Southampton and that full game at Bournemouth. And I think the manner of the defeat at Bournemouth spurred on the 7-0 at home and meant that we'll get over it a lot quicker than we would have if we only lost narrowly.
And Maradona?
I'll go for blip as well.
Okay. And I'd just like to point out to our listeners, I mean, I was frankly amazed when I found out that George and Tom were able to talk about that match for over half an hour without bursting into tears. If it'd been me doing the match report, and I know that I'm not brief, but I think it would have been like, oh God. And then
I'm not a happy clapper, but where there's been other results where, like the Stoke, where we absolutely.
Oh please, do we have to do this?
I'm in the Premier League now, Tom.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I didn't have to cry about it. So it's like this.
I will say I've not watched the Bournemouth goals at all. I just couldn't bring myself to do it.
Yeah, you keep it that way. Keep it that way. So 38% voted a blip. No one saw it as a warning sign, and 62% said, "Been and done. Let's move on." Our next question was about the Forest women. So, what position do you think Forest women are going to finish this season? Is it first, second, third to fifth, or below that? George, what do you think?
I think they'll win it, to be fair. I think they've had a really strong transfer win there. They're obviously top now with a game in hand, and they've got Wolves to come next weekend, I think. So I think they're in a really strong position. There's a lot of positivity at the minute, and I'm confident they'll do the job.
And Tom?
Yeah, same as George, really. I think they've put all of the eggs in one basket, haven't they? I think the start of the season promotion was the aim, and I think it'd be, if they don't win it, they're going to come second. So yeah, top two for me.
And Baz, anything to add to that?
Only in that my normal Forest demeanour means I'll have to say second.
Well, I think we found a person who voted for second then in the poll. So we had 53% saying we're going to finish first. One person said we're going to finish second. We had a surprising amount of people, 35% saying we're going to finish third to fifth, and one person saying we're going to finish below that. So I think we found the Derby fan. And I mean, obviously it's tight at the top, but to relate back, obviously, we've been trying to follow the Forest women this season, and Adam will be back joining us for a women's show, not this week coming, but the week after. And we're going to have a proper catch up with the run of games that they've got. But they, as you mentioned, Tom, they're not just thinking about this season, they're thinking about winning promotion next season as well. So we've got to be going for first. And that brings us on to our final poll question, which is, what position do you think Forest are going to finish this season? And I've given you the options of champions, second to fourth, fifth to eighth, or ninth or below. Maradona.
I think just second. I mean, go second to fourth. I think we'll finish second.
Okay, George?
I think we'll finish fifth, so fifth to eighth. I think City will pick up, but I'll be happy with fifth if it gets Champions League with the coefficient. Fingers crossed.
Okay, Tom?
Second to fourth for me. I think we're pretty much consistent. I mean, we haven't got obviously the carry-on circus, what's been happening at Man City in recent games and months. So I think our consistency, Nuno keeping a tight squad and everything, and us not being under pressure like Man City because of obviously their investment and everything. So I'm going to say second to fourth for me.
Okay, and last but not least, Baz.
But, well, sitting on the fence a little bit. It all depends on injuries. If we can stay injury-free, then second to fourth. If not, then I could see Newcastle just pipping us.
Ooh, okay. So, personally, I'm going to stick with the prediction I made when I was asked by the Observer to write the mid-season review, and I'm going to say fourth, and I'm going to say what I said then, which is I can't believe I'm predicting Forest to finish in the Champions League spots. But given the fatigue, the elements of fatigue that are caused by the teams playing in Europe, we've seen Chelsea stutter. Obviously, Man City are struggling for whatever reason, but Newcastle and Villa have also struggled because of the extra games that they're playing. So I'm going to go for fourth. And in terms of you, listeners, we had 5% going champions, 75% going second to fourth, 20% going 5th to 8th, and no one predicting 9th or below. So the Derby fan had obviously gone missing by that point and had lost interest. So what does that mean for today's show? Well, it means thank you very much to listeners for taking part, and thank you also to our panelists for sharing their opinions. And it's time to announce today's winner of Football Terrorists. So in 4th place, we have Maradona Of The Midlands with 6 points, but he only took part in one round and he didn't even know he was doing that. In 3rd place, we've got Baz with 15 points. In 2nd place, with 16.5 points, it's Tom, which means that today's winner is, with 18.5 points, is Mr. George Edwards. So you get to choose the Tricky Tree Tracks of Your Tears, a song that reminds you of a big moment for Forest, whether good or bad. And please don't make it something that reminds you of that game against Stoke.
Well, if I'm allowed to, I'm going to, before we start recording, listeners, these 4 fossils we're talking about, Metallica and things like that. So I'm going to name it to the only Metallica song that I know, which is Nothing Else Matters.
Okay.
Good choice.
Yeah, also bearing in mind that they play Enter Sandman when the team come running out. So,
is that Metallica, is it?
Yeah, they did that at Bournemouth the other week.
Oh God, it's always negative with you, isn't it?
Isn't it? It's a fact.
Stoke Bournemouth is never ending.
Yeah. It's just everything. Yeah, we lost that match. We got battered in that match. I'm going to play a song that reminds me of that.
Guns N' Roses. Is it Guns N' Roses at the moment? Welcome to the Jungle. Yeah, I thought it was. Because they used to have Metallica, then they've swapped it to Guns N' Roses. So.
Okie doke. So we will see what we can do with that. And just time for me to say thank you very much to Tom, to George, and to Baz, along with Jeremy, and of course the Maradona of the Midlands for joining us today. We'll be back after the FA Cup match against Exeter and the forthcoming league fixtures. And as I mentioned, Forest Women have got a 3-game week at City Ground, plenty of games going on this month. So Adam will be joining us again next week for a proper roundup. We'll still have the Friday 5 news roundups coming out, every Friday, oddly enough. And of course, I also want to remind you of the 1994-1995 season review, part 1 of which is in your feeds right now. You heard the trailer a little bit earlier, and thank you once again to Stephen, to Tom, and to the likes of Mark Crosley and David Phillips for joining us. So until next time, thank you very much, listener, for joining us, and come on, you Reds.
1865.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
You're a startup founder. Finding product market fit is probably your number one priority. But to land bigger customers, you also need security compliance. Obtaining your SOC 2 or ISO 27001 certification can open those big doors, but they take time and energy, pulling you away from building and shipping. That's where Vanta comes in. Vanta is the all-in-one compliance solution helping startups get audit ready and build a strong security foundation quickly and painlessly. Vanta automates the manual security tasks that slow you down, helping you streamline your audit. The platform connects you with trusted experts to build your program, auditors to get you through audits quickly, and a marketplace for essentials like pen testing. So whether you're closing your first deal or gearing up for growth, Vanta makes compliance easy. Join over 8,000 companies, including Y Combinator and Techstar startups who trust Vanta. For a limited time, get $1,000 off Vanta at vanta.com/simplify. That's VANTA.com/simplify for $1,000 off.